Today we'll be going through a scene that consistently gives me a heart attack every time I watch it. It's from the Coen Brothers No Country for Old Men. What I like most about this scene is the sparseness of dialogue, yet the Coen Brothers managed to maintain our captivation throughout every single shot by using subtle pieces of story and allowing us to put them together for a maximum effect. Without further ado, I'm Thomas Mendolia, and this is Shot to Shot. Shot number 1, we start on our protagonist, Llewellyn Moss, as he tries to rest from being chased by Anton Chigurh. A little backstory if you haven't seen it yet. At the beginning of the film, Llewellyn Moss, played by Josh Brolin, stumbles upon a drug deal gone wrong, at which he finds a suitcase full of money. He did what any of us would do and took it. He ran to a motel, and on high alert, he realized he was being followed by someone looking for the money, who we know to be Anton Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem. After narrowly escaping, Llewellyn makes his way to a different hotel, which is where our scene starts. In shot number 1, this bird's eye view shot slowly falls in on Llewellyn as he tries to sleep, pondering how in the world the hitman could have found him in the last hotel. All he says is,
"There just ain't no way."
What is he referring to? We get to find out. This scene continuously involves the audience by causing them to take two separate pieces and put them together on their own, making them an active participant in the story and keeping us fully engaged with Llewellyn and his experience. This shot also pushes in, as if the mounting pressure on Llewellyn is too overbearing for him that he just can't rest. He has to keep moving. He moves right out of this shot into shot number 2, a wide, low angle. Getting into a little bit more theoretical talk, there is a cross over his head, possibly adding to his burden of being the good guy of the story, facing evil. He is in silhouette, and the other thing that is purposefully lit is the door. And more importantly, the door crack. This will come into play later. The Coen brothers are sprinkling breadcrumbs throughout the scene to play with later. He reaches over and turns the light on and opens the briefcase. The audience does not know what he's thinking or what is going through his mind or what he's looking for. We are not far behind, but we are just behind Llewellyn, keeping us engaged and guessing what is going to happen next, which is one of the best things you can have your audience ask. Shot number 3, a low-angle close-up of Llewellyn, again pondering, thinking, contemplating, and we are asking, what is on your mind? Shot number 4, an insert of the inside of the briefcase, which we will cut back to later. Back to shot 3 as we're getting some answers as he digs into the briefcase. Back to shot 4, we still don't know what he's looking for, but he seems adamant about finding it. All his fears come true. It's a transmitter. Side note, you never know who in a film has what idea, but I thought it was very clever of the art department to have the thing that catches Llewellyn's eye as odd is a stack of $1 bills instead of $100 bills, which is where the transmitter is hid. Because why would they ruin and cut a hole in $100 bills? This is fantastic art design that supports the story and adds to the reality of the world that everyone on the team is trying to create. Another note about the editing, the scene cut back and forth between shot 3 and shot 4 rather rapidly, signifying Llewellyn's anxiety as he searches the briefcase, and now that he has found what he's looking for, the pacing slows down a bit for a heavy impact. That uh-oh moment. Back to shot 3 as Llewellyn brings the stack to the bed. Shot 5, a push in on the stack of bills as Llewellyn removes the transmitter. This shot slowly pushes in. One of my favorite things about this scene, as well as the rest of the film, is that the Coen brothers don't have Llewellyn say, "Oh no, I've found a transmitter. That's how that man must have found me back at the other hotel." Instead, they have an extra insert of the transmitter that pushes in for effect, so the audience has time to put the pieces together themselves, making them active participants. Shot 6. This could be a continuation of shot 4 and it was just on a dolly the whole time, and now it's pushing in for emotional brevity. But I'm going to call it a new shot because the editor is saying something different with it. This is the moment Llewellyn realizes that he is being followed. Now that the transmitter is found, it means several things. It means that's how Anton Chigurh found him before, but more importantly, it means that Anton could be and probably is here at this hotel right now. We cut back and forth between shot 5 and shot 6 to allow the audience time to put that together themselves. We get just enough time to realize he could be here now when we hear a noise downstairs. This edit is so powerful. Instead of cutting right into the action, the pacing is carefully crafted for maximum tension. Cutting out to shot 2, the wide, shows just how still everything is for a moment. And it also shows the door, which represents everything that is on the other side of it. This scene is all about Llewellyn and how he manages to deal with the situation. The fact that we never cut to Anton or what is happening on the outside of that door, or show where Anton is, causes the audience's imagination to kick in, which will always be scarier than anything you show them. That's part of what is so scary about this scene, staying with Llewellyn, because there's something so terrifying about the unknown. Shot 7, we follow the damning transmitter as he places it onto the bedside table. It's a very, very important piece of information, and it carries a lot of weight. So the Coen brothers track it from the bed to the bedside table in a pan. Shot 8, a close-up profile of Llewellyn from a higher angle. This shot is unnerving, as it is on the dark side of his face, almost in silhouette, and he is backlit. There's a little bit of a diagonal line from Llewellyn's face to the telephone, and diagonal lines are commonly known for driving anxiety. The camera moves with Llewellyn as if a string is tied between the camera and the character. This puts us further into Llewellyn's emotional state. The movement in this scene is all subjective to Llewellyn. I talk more about subjective and objective camera movement in a previous video I did on Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but basically subjective movement follows a character's movement or emotions, and objective movement, the camera is motivated by the filmmaker. Now, Llewellyn calls the front desk. We can hear the phone ringing downstairs. Just a bit of breadcrumb that was established in the prior scene. When Llewellyn checks in, he says,
"You on all night?"
Yes, sir. I'll be right here till 10 o'clock in the morning.
This here's for you. I ain't asking you to do anything illegal. There's someone who's been looking for me. Not police. And just call me if anyone else checks in tonight. By anyone, I mean any swinging dick.
This creates suspense. One of the best ways to create suspense is to show what's called a scene of preparation. This shows the intentions of the protagonist, or the characters involved. In a heist movie, this is the scene where the team goes over their plan. Once we know the character's intentions, what creates suspense is waiting to see if it actually plays out. We know the front desk clerk will be there all night. We know he was tasked with telling Llewellyn if anyone checks in. We know that we heard a noise downstairs. We also know that Anton Chigurh does not typically leave survivors where he goes. We also know he uses a cattle gun. Shot number 9, Llewellyn's point of view of the door that represents everything on the other side of it that we cannot see. Because there isn't a lot of dialogue, I feel this shot is necessary because yes, you have the sound of the phone ringing downstairs, but in case the audience doesn't pick up on that, we show the door. Shot 10, from the door's POV, we have a low-medium shot of Llewellyn looking at the door as he calls, and there is no answer. He hangs up slowly and quietly. Again, instead of saying, "Oh, he must be dead," the Coen brothers give the audience the chance to figure it out for themselves, giving them little clues to suggest as such. Back to the wide as he gets up and goes to the door to listen. The camera tilts up and moves slightly, but entirely based on Llewellyn staying with him. Shot 11, A low-angle insert of Llewellyn's feet at the door, which brings back the idea that light is coming from the other side of the door crack. He bends down to attempt to look through to the other side. We hear a slight sound. It's faint, but it sounds like a cattle gun to me. Llewellyn gets up and grabs the sawed-off shotgun that he customized himself a few scenes back. We continue to receive pieces of the puzzle. Back to shot 10 as Llewellyn sits on the edge of the bed, awaiting his fate, pointing the gun at the door. He then turns the light off. We cut back to the wide shot where that crack in the door means so much more now. Now we know there is a gap there that can be peered through. We know that light will leak to the other side, which is why Llewellyn turns his off. Shot 12, a close-up of Llewellyn waiting in the dark. Shot 13, another POV of the door as we hear footsteps approach from down the hall. Shot 14, a separate shot of the transmitter as we hear the beeping on the other side of the door. In a previous scene, Anton Chigurh's transmitter locator beeps as it gets closer to the transmitter. So when we start to hear it outside the door, we know now that it is indeed Anton who is approaching. Back to shot 12 as the beeping quickens in pace, ramping up the tension by subtle and amazing sound design. Shot 15. Now that crack in the door means something else. It's the signifier that shows the audience that Anton is standing right on the other side. We are given that even more when we hear the transmitter locator beeping stop, as it has arrived at its destination. Back to shot 12 as we see Llewellyn see this. It's important to note that it's not enough to show the audience something. You also have to show the audience that the character notices it as well. These are moments you notice usually later in the editing room. So it helps to have the clip to edit with in the first place. That's why it looks like most of these shots played out through the entire action of the scene on set, as they didn't know exactly what the edit was going to look like as they shot it. Shot 16, an insert of the shotgun being cocked, further amping up the bomb that is about to explode, the metaphorical bomb. The sound design is wonderful as it bumps up the click of the gun, enough for us to believe that it could be heard by Anton on the other side of the door. We cut back to shot 15 as Anton steps aside. Back to the close-up on Llewellyn as he potentially just blew his chance. Back to shot 15. This is the moment where hopefully the audience freezes and holds their breath. Anton turns the lights out in the hallway. The tables have turned. Up to this point, we are led to believe that Llewellyn has this under control and maintains the upper hand. He has taken every precaution, notified the clerk, has a shotgun, found the transmitter, he's ready. This is the point that the scene flips that idea on its head, and absolutely anything can happen from here on out, because now Llewellyn cannot see if Anton is approaching. And this is a perfect example of why this scene is so great, is because this affects us emotionally because we got all of those pieces in little bits leading up to this moment. And now we are on the edge of our seats. Now we slowly push in on Llewellyn even closer as he realizes this. Back to the shot of the door. What's smart about this is we don't just see nothing. We can still see that edge of the door, so we know what we're looking at, but we can just not see enough, which brings back that fear of the unknown. The shot tilts up to the door handle, which we know Anton uses the cattle gun to. After slowly going through this particular cut, the sound of the lock shooting out actually comes before the cut itself, which makes the cut seamless. We cut to shot 17, which is a tight insert of the door handle. Now, again, I wasn't on set when they shot this, but it seems like shooting the lock out is a complicated process. So instead of doing it in the previous shot where you'd have the camera tilt up and then the lock piece would burst out of the lock, they gave it its own separate shot so that the shot didn't depend on camera movement as well as a technical prop stunt to be successful. In the edit, they just put the noise over a few frames of the previous shot to make it seem like it started to come out in the wider angle, but it actually only comes out in the close-up. It happens so fast, and is a jump scare for the audience that you never notice. This is a very simple and well-crafted moment. We cut back to shot 12, which I believe is a separate shot because of the object that had to be hurled at Josh Brolin. If it were me filming this, I would separate the two, shooting everything up to this point, calling cut, and then keeping the camera there, calling action, and starting right at the object thrown at Josh. This would ensure that I had everything up to that point and I could focus on having this stunt pulled off in a fresh shot. The edit now picks up in pace as the action is on now. We cut briefly to Llewellyn's close-up, then to shot 18. Llewellyn's POV of the lock piece that just hit him. Back to his close-up, looking from the floor to the door as we hear it creak open. Back to the POV of the door as it creaks open. Back to shot 12 as Llewellyn fires. Back to the door as we see where he hit. Back to shot 12 as Llewellyn makes a break for it, grabbing his gun and the money and going to shot 18, a medium wide of Llewellyn opening the door and throwing out the money. Shot 19, an insert from a higher angle, perhaps Llewellyn's POV of the briefcase hitting the sidewalk below, the briefcase that started all of this in the first place. Shot 20, an exterior of the window in a medium wide as Llewellyn climbs out. Still, we do not see Anton. We don't know if he was hit by Llewellyn's shotgun blast. The camera tilts down with Llewellyn as he narrowly escapes a shot from Anton, who is represented as a dark figure in the background. Shot 21, a low-angle insert of the sidewalk we've seen before as Llewellyn lands hard as well as some glass from the window. Shot 22, this shot is on a dolly. It starts on the briefcase and pushes in and tilts up as Llewellyn grabs it and runs back into the hotel lobby, narrowly missing another gunshot. Again, we don't see where Anton is, but we can imagine he is right on Llewellyn's tail. This idea is further emphasized as the camera pushes in on Llewellyn as if it is following behind him and chasing him. Shot 23, back inside the hotel lobby, the camera dollies back slightly and tilts up with Llewellyn as he enters the lobby. Shot 24, Llewellyn's POV as he sees a cat drinking from a spilled mug. A clue into what happened downstairs moments earlier. Shot 23 continues to pull Llewellyn into the scene, allowing him to get a bit closer into a medium close-up. He turns his head and we get to see what he's looking at. The clerk is gone. Our worst fears are solidified. I admire how we don't show the clerk at all. Instead, we dolly to the left as if we are Llewellyn, who is trying to get a glimpse of the clerk's fate. It's more powerful to show the door open and the clerk's seat empty, rather than showing the clerk's dead body. This gives the audience the power of imagining what the grisly scene could look like. Back to shot 23, continuing to pull Llewellyn through the hallway. It lowers a bit as Llewellyn lowers and peers up the stairs. Again, we are put inside Llewellyn's head as we show him looking at something, and then we cut to what it is he's looking at from his point of view. A great example of this subjective filmmaking, putting the audience into the character's mindset by showing them walking and then showing what it is they're looking at, is a movie with Kirk Douglas called Paths of Glory. Here in this shot, we see the trenches of World War I, and all it is cutting back and forth between a shot of Kirk Douglas walking and shots of what it is he's looking at. This scene is another great example that utilizes this same technique. We follow Llewellyn throughout the hallway, and we show 3 separate times what it is he's looking at from his point of view. Shot 25, his POV of up the hallway, where we move past an object to reveal that nothing is there. Rather than cutting to nothing being there, they chose to increase the tension by moving past an object, waiting just a moment before showing the audience an empty stair set. I believe shot 23 continues, yet allows Llewellyn to pass in front as he runs past the stairwell to the back door, making a loud sound that Anton definitely heard. And finally, we cut to shot 26, a dolly shot that pulls Llewellyn outside into the dark unknown to fend for himself. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend watching it, as it is masterful filmmaking, utilizing basic techniques efficiently and cleverly to help bring the audience into the terror. The Coen Brothers have always been amongst my top all-time favorites, and exploring this scene was educational for me, and I hope it was for you as well. If you liked this video, check out my previous videos. Like, subscribe, and as always, please let me know your thoughts on the scene and if it affected you differently. Until next time, this has been Shot to Shot.